Ay, ay, ay. All right, so let's take a look at this. Palmer Luckey. How many people know Palmer Luckey? I've talked about him before. He's the dude who started Anduril, the defense contractor. Palmer Luckey aims to revive tech banking with crypto-friendly Erebor startup. It's coming from June 13th. This Palmer Luckey, doesn't he look like a happy dude? It's Palmer Luckey, yeah. The Hawaiian shirt, the goatee with the soul patch, the mullet action. Man, he looks like a good dude, doesn't he? Palmer Luckey, whose fast-growing defense firm Anduril is set on revolutionizing modern warfare, is now backing an ambitious crypto-friendly banking startup that aims to rethink the world of finance. 32-year-old tech mogul is backing a fledgling financial firm that aims to provide stability for Silicon Valley and which is focused mainly on helping tech entrepreneurs build their businesses versus maximizing returns on deposits, insiders say. The startup is tentatively being called Erebor, a reference to the mountain where the dragon Smaug stores his hoard of gold and J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings prequel, The Hobbit. But the moniker is not final and could change, the sources says. There's definitely a lot of reference to The Lord of the Rings when it comes to Silicon Valley and these companies. Anduril is actually the name of the sword that the main dude, I think, what's his name? I was never a Lord of the Rings dude. Aragon or something like that, whatever it is, the main guy. His sword is called Anduril. It's supposed to be the magic sword. And then there's Palantir, which has to do with the balls, the Overwatch crystal ball, where you can see all across the world, and so on and so forth. And now they're starting up this that has to do with the mountain where the dragon stores his gold. So a lot of references to the Lord of the Rings when it comes to Silicon Valley stuff. In addition to cash, sources said Erebor aims to handle deposits in stablecoin, a class of digital currency with value directly pegged to the stable asset like the US dollar or gold. So there is something interesting that I'm keeping tabs on. I'm keeping track in regards to the stablecoin situation. One of the things that Trump was pushing during the campaigning and stuff was about ending the Fed. How many people remember that? That was one of the talking points that he was talking about, was ending the Fed. What we have with the stablecoin situation, I've seen bits and pieces of information getting dropped. So this is in no way saying that this is what's going to happen. So don't take it that way. But I am going to tell you this because I want you guys to keep an eye on this situation like I'm going to be doing. Because I'm hearing that there is the possibility that they're not going to have the stablecoin be backed by the actual US dollar. They may actually have it backed by US treasuries or US bonds. Now, why is this significant? Why is this important? The reason why this is important is because if it's backed by the US dollar, it's the Federal Reserve, the Fed, that prints the dollar. That's not what the Treasury does, the US Treasury. It's the Fed that prints it. If it's held by bonds or treasuries, the US Treasury actually handles that, which means if they're going to have the stable coin be backed by US treasuries or US bonds, that means that they can completely go around the Fed, and if they eliminate cash, they can be done with the Federal Reserve altogether. They won't need it. Now, why this is also important is because everybody's calling for the Fed to end. What's a good way to re-up the trust factor of Trump if they need to do it? Have him end the Fed. Well, how does he do that? Stablecoins backed by US bonds. And so this is something that I'm keeping track on because they won't need the Fed when the stablecoin is involved. They don't need them anymore. They'll be worthless because the Fed doesn't deal with bonds, just like the Treasury doesn't deal with the dollar. So if they're switching to the stablecoin and it's bonds, that means the Fed can just go away. People will applaud that and go, way to go, kind of like when he signed the anti-CBDC situation, although that was just a transition to something worse, the stablecoin. This would be another case of that where he ended the Fed, but all in the name of bringing in the stablecoin, which is going to be a lot worse. So I just want to put that forward for you guys. Just keep an eye on it, because that is definitely an avenue I could see them taking if they want to take it. And that's something that I'm paying attention to. I haven't seen anything out that comes out and just says, this is what's going to happen. I haven't seen that, but I've seen bits and pieces that seem to be going in that direction, like the Genius Act. Part of that has to do with that as well. So I'm seeing bits and pieces that are really pointing to that possibility, which would in turn fulfill a few things that they need to get done. So worth keeping tabs on. Okay, so in addition to cash, sources says Erebor aims to handle deposits in stablecoin, a class of digital currency with value directly pegged as a stable asset like the US dollar or gold. Luckey, who famously created the Oculus VR headset and whose net worth is pegged by Forbes at $3.6 billion, is partnering with bank startup and tech investor Joe Lonsdale. Sources close to the project. Joe Lonsdale is one of the 4 co-founders of Palantir, along with Alex Karp, Peter Thiel, and the other dude. I can never remember his name, but there's another 4th guy. Joe Lonsdale is involved with this. Remember, he's the dude that went on Sean Ryan podcast and said he has the answer to take care of all of those weird drones or UFOs that were flying all over the East Coast and so on and so forth. So yeah, Joe Lonsdale is involved with this. That should be telling you something. Lonsdale venture firm 8VC is leading a $225 million fundraising round for the startup. Cash will be used to meet federal regulatory requirements for launching a bank, sources say. The startup expected post-money valuation couldn't immediately be learned. Representatives for Luckey and Lonsdale, who will each take a seat on the new firm's board of directors, according to the sources, did not immediately comment. The Erebor project is in its early stages, and the plans have not been finalized, the sources added. The partners have yet to set a date for their startup operations. While Luckey is a co-founder, he's not expected to hold an executive role or to be involved in day-to-day operations at Erebor. The names of other co-founders and venture firms involved in the initial fundraising round couldn't immediately be learned. Talks about Erebor began soon after the sudden collapse of the 2023 Silicon Valley Bank collapse. Once the go-to bank for startup techs and venture firms, sources said. You guys remember that? You guys remember when the Silicon Valley Bank collapsed and how it was such a big deal? And how there was a whole bunch of other smaller banks that were getting merged and swallowed up and stuff like this? It's amazing how that Silicon Valley Bank goes belly up. And now the Techno bros are coming in saying, we're going to replace it, but instead of cash, it's going to be stablecoin. Pretty interesting how that works. As Silicon Valley Bank imploded after rising interest rates triggered a liquidity crunch that left clients unable to access their accounts and make payroll, the feds eventually moved into guaranteed deposits in order to avert full-blown financial crisis. Offering stablecoin deposits and support will allow Erebor to have constant service even during banking holidays, providing flexibility for nimble startups. Yep. I think we kind of get the idea of what's going on with this. So it's pretty interesting, the moves that are being made in regards to tech banking and stablecoin, the possibility of going around the Fed so they can get rid of them in order to bring in stablecoin based upon treasuries or bonds. And it's very interesting, the decisions and the moves that are being made. At this point, we just need to wait and see what happens, what comes about from it, because we really don't know what all this is going to eventually be leading to. But again, I think the important thing is that we are active and looking for these little nuggets that pop up here and there, because when we don't rely upon AI to do the thinking for us, when we find these little nuggets, we can start piecing things together and use our critical thinking in order to possibly see the direction that they're going to take in regards to this. Remember, they don't always have just one central roadway that they're going to do this. A lot of people think that they've got one way, plan A, there's no other plans, we're just going to roll with that. But no, they've got plan A, B, C, D, all the way down to whatever letter it is. But they've got many of them because things get messy. And they got to be able to change lanes. They got to be able to jump to a different road whenever they can, and they've done it all the time, but yet somehow they still continue to go in the direction that they want to go. And so this is one of the situations that I think that is also happening there as well. Now, speaking of Joe Lonsdale, he recently just had an interview with CNBC regarding the Israel-Iran conflict. And so I wanted to put this in here because Joe Lonsdale popped up. And so I thought it would be good to go ahead and show this. Because as you guys know, these guys, these tech dudes, whether it's Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, whether it's Joe Lonsdale, whether it's Sam Altman, whether it's Palmer Luckey with Anduril, doesn't matter. These tech guys, they like to find any way possible that where they can get a foothold in on crises that are currently happening. So I thought this would be interesting to listen to what Joe has to say in regards to this. So let's hear from Joe, shall we? What you got for us, Joe?
The reality here that people, if you want to understand Iran versus other places, is the people of Iran, the Persian people, the Kurds, the others there, they're much more natural allies of the Jews, of USA, of the West. This was a very modern country before it was conquered by these insane theocrats.
That's exactly what I would say.
That's a very important point to understand.
They were going to throw flowers at us in Iraq. That never happened.
Yeah, well, and I'm not saying they're going to throw flowers at us here, but this is a lot different situation. And it's I work with a lot of amazing Persian people. I'm really excited to invest in Iran if we can get this country to be some sort of republic, not run by crazy people. And that's.
Did you guys hear that? He said something. Let's back it up and replay it. See if you guys can catch it.
I work with a lot of amazing Persian people. I'm really excited to invest in Iran.
I'm really excited to invest in Iran. Is there something else that's going on in regards to this?
We can get this country to be some sort of republic, not run by crazy people, and that's a lot easier than doing that in Afghanistan or somewhere else.
Well, so how much do you think this is about? We were talking to the Minister of the Economy in Israel. Is it about regime change, like full-on regime change in Iran, versus just eliminating the nuclear threat?
Well, it's very clear that this administration says it's about eliminating the nuclear threat. That's their goal. I respect that. When we attacked Iraq 20 years ago, even then I thought it was a mistake versus going after Iran. Iran's clearly a really evil regime. So I've been against the Iranian regime. I've been for freeing Iran for a long time.
Freeing Iran for a long time. Now, what's interesting about this is he mentions this administration is about eliminating the nuclear threat, which is fascinating because I have seen countless people from this administration all say that they're in favor of instituting a regime change in Iran. And Trump has even hinted at it, even though he's come out and said, no, I don't want to do that. There's been hints that he has put forward saying that that's really what he wants to do. Now, the question is you've got a team of techno bros who are actually calling the shots behind Trump. At what point are they going to say, no, we need to go in and do this and we need to do that in order to install this and then to install that and whatnot? So it's very interesting that this is something else that I've been tracking during this whole time too, because there's been a lot of talk about full-on regime change coming from the administration. So what that will be, what will happen, we know that there's been regime change all over the place, not just by the United States, but all these other countries. We see like what happened in Libya when Turkey went in and installed their guys. See what happens in Sudan when Russia goes in and installs those guys, which is fascinating because Libya and Sudan are two of the smaller players involved with that Ezekiel 38 situation, with Turkey and Russia being involved as well. So regime change there. We know Iran's involved with that as well. Is there going to be regime change there? We do know that the Freemasons have a hold in Iran, and so on and so forth, which that plays into the fact of Albert Pike's Third World War situation. So there's a lot of things happening in regards to that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you which way it's going to go because I don't have a clue. I don't think anybody has a clue at this moment in time. I just think that there's a lot of interesting people discussing interesting tactics that may or may not play a factor into the future. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I saw that interview with Joe Lonsdale, and I thought it was pretty interesting that he's talking about this, talking about investing in Iran. He knows a bunch of people there. He works with a bunch of people there already. So it's very interesting how that's going to work. So I thought I'd go ahead and let you guys know the situation there.